But what this makes me think about is about the Mandela effect, why it has to somehow come to you, I'm convinced now, or it has to be sparked in you, or something has to trigger in you. It is very spiritual now, I'm convinced. After this, particularly the Gibraltar episode, I'm convinced that it's spiritual. I'm convinced now that uh, it's sort of a magic. It's magical in that it's magic, as in not with a K, but with the traditional C. It's a sleight of hand, and that unless you are kind of in on the joke, that you're not going to understand it. You're not going to get it, and it's very. I found it to be very disconcerting to me, and it was. This is the first time now where it's affecting me in a more negative way, and in a way in terms of just, and I mean that just emotionally, because it's something that's so plain and it's right there, and there are people that recognize it as a real change, and yet the response should be of a complete and utter astonishment, and it's not.
I think it's like you have to be allowed to see, because like with the gentle ramping up that it's been for me, um, it's almost like I was allowed to see, but not to fully wake to it. And
Hmm.
then I finally got to a point where I could fully wake to it. And while it was shocking, it wasn't that big of a shock because I had seen the change, like the very first changes in '96, the huge big shift in 2008, and then again 2016. So I was like very fortunate with that, that it was like a gentle
Hmm.
ramping up for me. But for other people, it wasn't, that they were completely asleep. And then all of a sudden they were completely awake and they just panic, they just freak out. But you can't, it's almost like you can't wake somebody. You try and they might even wake up for a day and then they go back to, oh, I don't care, what'll we eat, that kind of stuff. And it seems to
So
be almost like a waking sleep or a spirit of confusion or something crazy that's like upon people where they just can't snap out of it.
you're absolutely right. And I'm convinced now this is something that you almost have to be allowed to see or allowed to wake up to. I'm utterly 100% convinced of it now, that this is not something that you can sort of proselytize someone into it. This is not something that you can, people either come to it or they don't. And now I'm completely convinced of it. And of all things, I thought it would be biology, but no, it turned out to be geography for me. So in a weird way, when this shift happened and I made note of this, and this affected me in kind of a personal way, I know now that I learned something with this shift. You know how we sort of learn shifts of, hey, there's different creatures, or our spine has changed, or kind of an internal thing where I learned something about the nature of the Mandela effect. And I hope I've got enough mojo with everybody out there that you can trust me when I'm telling you that you can have something so dramatic as, Gibraltar, and the Rock of Gibraltar, and the island of Gibraltar being attached now to mainland Europe, and it used to not be. And someone who's probably sailed around the thing a dozen or more times, and they acknowledge it, but then move on to literally asking, Pepsi or Coke kind of situation. So, I just want to communicate to everyone that you have to be woken yourself, or something internal in your own mechanisms or your own brain or your own body there has to be an on switch to this thing.
That's like the mysterious thing. Like people, like certain people are being given the eyes to see and ears to hear in this situation. And it's people from every spectrum of life. And what's confusing to a lot of people is that it is everyone, that it's not just a certain part of the world, that it's not just men or just women, it's not just Christians. It seems to be a big mad mixture of everybody. And we're not, like, the thing we have in common is that we can see, but we're not sure why.